Kirk Muyres has been holding long enough. Team Dunstone, he's the second. He is in Calgary in the bubble, and he looks like he's going NASCAR racing this morning. How you doing, Kirk?
I'm doing well. Just hunkering down in quarantine, and I'm pretty glad the Scotties is on to pass the time. That's for sure.
That is 9 hours of curling coverage a day on TSN. So for a curling lover, that is an absolute buffet. So what would you say to my question that if a wild card team won the Scotties, what would the banner say and where would it go?
I listened to that and I started thinking about it. And I was wondering when you said it, but then I thought, let's look back to when Sandra Schmirler would have won as Team Canada. I think she might have won when she won her Scotties. I'm not sure if she won as Team Canada, but nonetheless, I believe it's similar to when the Team Canada won before the wild cards. It would go back to their home club. It would say Team Canada on it, and then it would say they won the Scotties. And it, like you said, it would be in the red and white of the Scotties Tournament Hearts. And I think probably now it would say Team Wildcard, to be honest with you. I know that's weird. And I don't think many curlers would want to win the Brier or the Scotties as Team Wildcard and then have Team Wildcard hang in their curling club. But beggars can't be choosers, I guess. I hope we can do it as Team Saskatchewan.
I know, but I'm such a contrary thinker, Kirk. Like, I'm laying in bed last night going, what happens if this happens? And the other thing, don't forget, is you get a patch on your arm. So if you're representing Saskatchewan or Manitoba down the line and you've got a brown and yellow jacket on, but then you have a wild card, like, it is a little confusing, right?
It is. And if you're a really diehard curling fan, there's tons of talk going around about the Purple Heart. So if you win a provincial championship, you get a Purple Heart. And that's what it's always been about. And then, so now there's a couple things. The Team Wildcards don't get that Purple Heart, as I understand it. But then with what happened this year, the big debate is whether teams at all should get a Purple Heart. Because basically no team won their provincial championship. They all just got appointed to go to the bubble. So there's been a huge debate in the curling world among, old school thinkers, new school thinkers, whether the teams deserve that Purple Heart. And it's a good question.
It's interesting for sure. Our sales rep in Calgary, the guy that brought us together with Verge Agriculture, they are sponsoring our curling coverage. Jim Perry says, Kirk Muyres understands the value of his sponsors. He certainly does. We call him Jimmy Two Tables. But Kirk, what's your analysis of 4 day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days of the Brier play so far?
Well, it's been a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on. I mean, there's been some moments of quite honestly just poor curling, and I think you can chalk it up to just rust. I mean, there hasn't been enough time to get the reps in practicing, but there certainly hasn't been enough time for these teams to get the reps in playing against each other and getting the feel. And a lot of these teams are even new to begin with. Plus, they've had 8 or 9 months off, and you definitely saw that rust. And then you had moments you saw that really good, talented curler come out and make huge shots. I mean, you saw Laura Walker make a huge shot for the win, I think, on the first day. And then you see Chelsea Carey playing amazing curling. And you see moments of brilliance and then moments of just like what went on there. And I think there's an element of, one, it's that rust factor. Two, you lose a little bit of that focus because there's not that huge pressure in that arena of 5,000 people and that energy. It's a little dull. But I think as the week progresses and you especially get into the championship round, teams are going to get really a good handle on the ice and start making more shots. I think there's a factor of that is when the ice is new, it's a little tough as well. So you put all that together and there's really some imbalanced curling going on out there. And I think once we get later in the week, the ice makers, Greg Owasco, and the crew there are going to have the ice figured out. The teams are going to have the ice figured out. The teams are going to start sliding at the broom better. And I think going into the closing weekend, it's going to be a shootout.
My apologies. Darren has pointed out that I said Brier play. I'm talking to a Brier guy about the Scotties, so I had a brain cramp there. You got it. You understand. But, how about the play of our good friend Rachel Holman, who almost joined us this morning? She's in her 3rd trimester, and she hasn't thrown a rock since November. I mean, I saw her throwing some in her backyard. I guess that doesn't count, but she's unbeaten. Man, I guess, are you surprised by any of the results so far?
I don't know if I'm too surprised. I think I'm seeing a little bit of a letdown out of Jones, maybe a little bit. I kind of thought they'd come out a little bit more firing, and they seem to be struggling for where they would expect to be. So I think Jones is a little bit of a surprise so far. But as we know, when you watch Jenny Jones over the last 20 years, she's an animal late in the week. She's the best in the world when it matters, and she's probably the best of all time when it matters. So you can't count them out. But a little surprised at them so far. And then Rachel's team looks strong. They look confident. They look like they knew where to put the broom. They were making shots. They were throwing them with confidence and putting a lot of pressure on the opposition. So, I don't think there's any surprise that Rachel's going to be at the top there. But when you're 8 months pregnant and you haven't thrown in a long time, that can be a surprise. But yeah, they are looking so good. I think they're going to be tough to beat as the week goes on here.
Well, kudos to Rachel. I'm cheering for her. I couldn't believe when I read this morning she's only 31. I did an event with her in Paradise Hill just prior to the pandemic, and she just drove 2 hours from St. Paul, Alberta. It was nothing for her. And by the way, I've seen some male curlers, guys, with a boiler on them. Not much different than what she's carrying, by the way. So let's just point that out for a second.
Back in the 80s. Eh?
Exactly, right. I'm not going to name any names. But just one on your play, Kirk. Viewer Greg Klevgard wants to know how much rust there will be on Team Dunstone by the time you guys get the Brier underway.
Yeah, it's tough to know. I think we're really leaning on the fact that we know we've all been there before. We know we've all thrown at the broom, slid at the broom. Any shot that's called, we know we've made before. So we're really working on that, just mentally, to try to wrap our heads around that there's really not going to be much new in that world. But at the same time, I think everyone's going to deal with rust. I think every team in there is going to deal with a little bit of rust. And it's just a matter of the team that can figure it out faster, get back to sliding at the broom faster, and get control of that weight and that feel. Because if you haven't played truly for 8 or 9 months, you lose some of that feel of maybe the difference between a 1 or 2 feet. And you sometimes need that to make a shot. And so I think the team that can get through that fastest is going to be miles ahead once you get into middle of the week, putting yourself in a good position with a decent record, going into that championship round and hopefully the playoffs. We've been really lucky to have Adam Kingsbury with us. He's worked with Rachel Homan, went to the Olympics with Rachel Homan. He's a psychologist, so he's been able to work with us mentally through conversations like this on Zoom. And I think that's going to be a big difference maker for us to be able to kind of keep that level of play high once we do get the chance to compete and play in the best event in the curling world, the Brier, baby.
Ooh, exactly. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on short notice today. Let's do it again. Stay safe, and I appreciate the time. We miss you.
Awesome. Miss you guys too, and congrats on the show again. You guys seem to be killing it, and it's cool to watch you guys grow over the last few years. It's really neat.
Same to you. But thank you, Kirk. I appreciate it. Absolutely. Kirk Muyres from Team Dunstone joining us, and they're crushing it too over there with their sponsorships. And shoot, they're in the Brier for a second consecutive year. Our curling report is mentioned, brought to you by Verge Agriculture, helping farmers plan and optimize their operations across every field. Visit vergeag.com to learn more today. Just go follow them on Twitter and download their software. See what you think.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.